And tonight was the second meeting on the 2018 City of Wausau budget. What was discussed tonight?
Correct. Tonight we talked about supplemental requests, which would be allocations for new spending within the 2018 budget that are received from all of the departments. We rank and weigh all of those. We looked at alternative funding sources for a number of them, and we looked at some carryover funding where we've had savings in 2017 for some of those, so we would not need to levy for those or increase the mill rate to account for those in our 2018 budget. So that's a good sign. Secondly, we went through the capital improvement projects, or the CIP projects that we had approved in the summer, and we had benchmarked or earmarked over $400,000 in that budget for bus replacement, because we knew that we were going to need those going forward to participate in our share of grant funding that we were expecting from the state of Wisconsin. We've learned that connected to that bus funding grant, which the signs all look very good that we're going to receive that, our portion can be funded through a 10-year amortization and reduction in shared revenue. So we don't have to borrow for that immediately. And so our CIP then funding that we had anticipated would allow us to accomplish more things off of the list. You know, you'll recall on our original list, we were only able to accomplish about 4 projects out of 20. Normally, in a normal year, we can get about half of it done, depending on what the stuff is costing. So we looked at the projects, we reallocated some of those funds so we can get a little more work done with the funding that we already planned for. And so those two things got ironed out tonight, and now next Tuesday, we'll have some preliminary calculations as far as mill rate and as far as what we expect in transportation aids and employee health insurance. Those were 2 moving targets yet, but we're closer.
And for those who may not know, can you kind of explain what exactly the mill rate is?
The mill rate is the rate per $1,000 of value that you pay in tax on your home. And so for a $100,000 home, that's how we usually talk about our mill rate. So depending on what our increase is, we usually do an illustrative example as far as what the impact is to the owner of a $100,000 home. And then they know if they would pay an extra $5 or $14 or $30 or whatever. So that's the way we project that out for residents, so they know what to expect on the tax bills in December.
And what's a typical increase of a mill rate year by year?
It depends. Last year it was a big bite. We had an awful lot of deferred maintenance that we had to take care of, and so last year's increase was, I would say, atypical. It was larger than what we've expected, but we did have a few years where the mill rate was either 0 or just a penny or 2. What happened though is the impact of doing that caused the backlog in uncompleted projects and deferred maintenance. And so the increase that we took last year was symptomatic of taking almost none for 3 or 4 years in there and really having a dry up in terms of maintenance and work that could get done. And it really then caused some projects that needed to get done to be a bit more expensive because we didn't make those investments early on. And so, you know, you want to try to keep your mill rate as level as you can, but in many economies, it's not possible to be the same year for year for year. And sometimes there is always a slight increase just based on economic uptick. So we're hopeful that we're going to certainly try to keep that number to a reasonable figure and to a low number. Most of the supplements that we looked at tonight, the impact to the mill rate was less than a cent. It was fractions of pennies. So, and most of those things, the most expensive ones, we opted not to fund. And we're going to consider those for carryover if there are savings from the 2017 year, and we're not going to levy for those in 2018.
And during discussions tonight, Dennis Smith and Chris Shaw kind of got into a heated discussion. Is it typical for emotions to run high during budget time?
It is, but it's also typical for the two of them to engage in spirited debate. And that's not to be construed as any sort of drama. It's just that they both are very passionate about what they do. And they have a spirited discussion on a number of issues all the time. And they both walk out of it respecting one another, and it's totally fine. So it's just that to bring us back to center, I think the solution to what they were debating tonight is that we get the metrics from our marketing consultant, which the Economic Development Committee was given, circulate them to the entire council, and then the council will be able to see what measure of success we've had with that marketing, because that discussion was about marketing dollars. And knowing what we've achieved with the first phase of the marketing plan, which 2017 was the first year, we've got some great results. And I think seeing that information in the PowerPoint presentation that we had from the marketing consultant, I think would answer the entire question. So, spirited debate, but not a big deal. They'll be fine for it. So,
anything else to add on about tonight then?
No, it was a good night. We had a great discussion. Everything we planned to get done, we got done. And so the next session is Tuesday night at 5.